Carl Jung's Guide to Income. Turn your spiritual gifts into a business. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where today we explore a powerful truth that can change your life. You don't need permission to live your purpose. You just need to own it. In this video, we'll dive into Carl Jung's timeless insight on archetypes and how you can turn your spiritual gifts into a meaningful and profitable business. This isn't about credentials or certificates. It's about presence, authenticity, and inner authority. Are you ready to embody your truth and let your gifts speak louder than any degree ever could? Let us know in the comments what gift within you is waiting to be shared with the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe it's time for the world to feel your light. Now, let's begin. 1. Energy over credentials. People don't buy products. They buy feelings. This quote echoes the core truth that Carl Jung hinted at long before the age of digital entrepreneurship. When we talk about turning spiritual gifts into a business, we're not discussing marketing gimmicks or chasing clout. We're talking about authenticity, presence, and the emotional experience you give to others. One of the most misunderstood truths in our modern economy is this: people don't pay you for your credentials. They pay for your energy. A degree might prove what you studied, but your spiritual presence reveals who you've become through that journey. In a world oversaturated with experts and information, what stands out is how you make someone feel in your presence. It's your emotional frequency, your spiritual groundedness, and your lived wisdom that resonate, and that's what people are willing to invest in. Carl Jung's insights into individuation, becoming who you were always meant to be, are not just psychological theories. They are roadmaps for turning your scars into stories, your breakdowns into breakthroughs, and your spiritual awakening into the foundation of your income. So let's get real. If you've been through pain, transformation, and inner work, you've already earned a certification that no university can offer. Jung believed that our deepest power lies in integrating the unconscious, the shadow, the wounds, the divine spark, and through that inner work, we don't just heal ourselves, we prepare to guide others. Your story is your strategy. Your presence is your brand. And your spiritual gifts, intuition, empathy, healing, wisdom, are not side notes to your life. They are the centerpieces of a new kind of business model. In this new world, transformation beats information. People don't want to be taught anymore. They want to be moved. They want to feel seen, heard, and safe. And you, having walked through the fire, are uniquely equipped to offer that. Jung's concept of archetypes teaches us that within each of us lives a healer, a sage, a warrior, a teacher. These inner identities don't need licenses. They need embodiment. In today's world, especially for men who have been trained to suppress their sensitivity, stepping into your spiritual gifts can feel like rebellion. But that rebellion is sacred. That courage is leadership. You don't have to try harder. You have to stop apologizing for your intuition, your inner knowing, your spiritual wisdom. If your presence calms a room, if your words awaken insight, if your story inspires change, then you hold a gift that the world has been silently begging for. The truth is, turning your spiritual gifts into a business is not about learning new skills. It's about remembering who you are and showing up unapologetically in that energy. Comment below. I carry wisdom energy. 5. Believe in your value first. Before anyone else can see your worth, you have to be the first one to believe in it fully and unapologetically. Carl Jung understood that deep transformation begins within, and in the context of your income and purpose, that means anchoring your spiritual value in your own self-belief. You don't need 10 certificates or a fancy title to begin. You need conviction. Think about it. How many times have you walked into a room and instantly felt drawn to someone, not because they had a PhD, but because their presence spoke louder than their resume? That's not coincidence. That's energetic alignment. In spirituality and business alike, people don't invest in your background. They invest in how you make them feel, in the energy you transmit, in the truth you embody. Let me share a story. A friend of mine, David, left his corporate job after 20 years. He had no formal coaching degree, but he had wisdom from life. He had survived divorce, financial collapse, and depression, and used those experiences to help others rebuild. At first, he doubted himself, thinking, "Who's going to pay me?" But once he truly embodied his story and showed up with belief in his value, clients began showing up. Not because he marketed harder, but because he radiated trust, clarity, and groundedness. That's the secret no one teaches. Confidence is a spiritual practice, and it's contagious. So let me ask you this. Where in your life are you still waiting for permission to show up as the expert you already are? What would change if you decided today that your story, your scars, and your journey are enough? You see, spiritual growth isn't just about meditation and mantras. It's about embodying your worth in the real world, in your relationships, and yes, in your income. It's about understanding that you are the brand, the vessel, the transmission. When you begin to trust your value, the world mirrors that back. The deeper lesson here is simple. Your energy introduces you before you speak, and people feel whether or not you trust yourself. So, stop outsourcing your confidence, reclaim it, root into it, and let your spiritual essence speak louder than any credentials ever could. Because in the end, it's not your resume that transforms lives, it's your presence. Now ask yourself, are you ready to be seen? Not as someone who needs validation, but as someone who has already become the permission others are seeking. That shift in identity, that's where your true business begins. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this has shaped your journey. 6. Shift the spiritual money mindset. Let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable at first. But if you stay with me, it could completely transform the way you see money, service, and your sacred purpose. Here's the truth. Being paid for your spiritual gifts is not only acceptable, it's sacred. So many people have been conditioned to believe that if you are a spiritual person, you must reject material wealth, that charging for your healing work or intuitive gifts somehow diminishes their purity. But where did that belief come from? And more importantly, who does it serve? Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that includes embracing your full power, spiritual, emotional, and yes, even financial. You see, rejecting money because you're on a spiritual path is like saying the sun shouldn't shine too brightly, but your light was never meant to be dimmed. It was meant to support you, sustain you, and serve others in the process. The discomfort you feel about charging for your gifts isn't a moral compass. It's often inherited guilt, unhealed patterns, or cultural shame wrapped in false humility. What if I told you that money is simply an energetic exchange, a recognition of value, of transformation, of alignment? What if the more spiritually aligned you are, the more you should be receiving, not less? Spiritual wisdom teaches us that abundance is our birthright, not a reward for suffering. It's time to shift the story. You are not selling your soul, you are sharing your soul. You are not taking advantage, you are creating an impact. And the impact you make deserves to be nourished, sustained, and supported. When you heal someone's heart, guide someone back to their truth, or help them reconnect with their soul that's priceless. And yet, it's okay to set a price. Why? Because the energy you pour into your work, the lifetimes of experience, the pain you transmuted, the lessons you've embodied are valuable. Carl Jung's teachings on individuation show us that the journey of becoming our true selves is not just a personal path, it's a service to the collective. So why would that not be worth honoring with value? Let me ask you this. If the universe is infinite, why does your income need to be limited? Why do we celebrate exhaustion but question spiritual abundance? Do you see how those old beliefs can keep you small, poor, and silent? Is it time to release the fear that accepting money somehow makes your work less sacred? Because it is not money that corrupts, it is the unconscious attachment to it. But when you are conscious, intentional, and purposeful, money becomes a tool, not a trap. A tool that allows you to serve more, give more, and create a life that reflects who you are. So today, I challenge you to reclaim your worth, to say yes to spiritual and financial expansion, to step into your calling with both arms open not only to give, but also to receive. And I want you to sit down with this question. What beliefs about money are you finally ready to let go of so that your talent can grow freely and fully? If you are ready, comment below. I am ready. 7. Purpose-driven income. There comes a moment in every man's life, especially between the ages of 30 and 65, when he begins to wonder, is there more to success than just survival? Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that truth becomes even more vital when you realize that your income is not just about paying the bills. It's about living from purpose, not pressure. When you begin to align your livelihood with your spiritual gifts, you stop chasing money as a means of validation and start receiving it as a tool for expansion. This is what I call purpose-driven income. The kind that flows not because you're hustling to prove yourself, but because you're finally rooted in who you are. It's not about trading your time for money. It's about exchanging your presence, your insight, your lived experience for real transformation in others. And when you start serving from that place where your energy is no longer drained, but replenished through your work, money becomes a byproduct of meaning. Too many men spend decades grinding, only to wake up one day realizing they've built a life that looks successful but feels hollow. They've sacrificed health, relationships, and inner peace, chasing an idea of success that never truly satisfied the soul. But what if you saw income as a form of energy exchange? What if your bank account could be a reflection of how deeply you're living your purpose instead of how tirelessly you're performing? That's what spiritual awakening teaches you. To shift from earning out of obligation to receiving out of alignment. In today's world, people don't just want services, they want depth, resonance, and authenticity. They want to feel your presence, not just read your resume. This is why it's essential to create space for support. Let your business, your offerings, and your system serve you so you can serve others without burning out. Receiving isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It allows you to stop pouring from an empty cup and start leading from overflow. So the question is, are you ready to see money not as the enemy of your mission, but as its ally? Are you willing to believe that being supported financially is part of fulfilling your divine role in this world? Because your spiritual journey isn't meant to leave you broke. It's meant to empower you to give without resentment, to lead without depletion, and to show others that abundance isn't a reward for sacrifice, but a result of alignment. In the words of Jung, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. So what will you choose to become now? A man who hustles for approval, or a man who receives because he finally knows who he is and what he's here to do? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this has shaped your journey. 8. Authenticity attracts clients. When it comes to building a meaningful business rooted in spirituality, Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us that the path to abundance doesn't begin with marketing tricks or polished strategies. It begins with authenticity. You don't need to chase people or prove your worth through flashy promotions or over-the-top branding. What you truly need is to live your truth so unapologetically, so powerfully aligned with your inner self that the right people naturally feel drawn to you. In a world overflowing with noise, sales pitches, and superficial content, what people are actually seeking is depth, realness, and a sense of connection that comes from someone who's walking their path with integrity. Think about it. When was the last time you were deeply impacted by someone, not because of their credentials, but because of how they made you feel? Because their presence carried a calm certainty, a magnetic sense of knowing who they are and what they stand for. That's the energy of someone who's done the spiritual work. Someone whose business is not just built on information, but on transformation. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this couldn't be more true in the world of spiritual entrepreneurship. When you lead from a place of aligned purpose, your presence becomes your brand, your story becomes your offer, and your life becomes the living proof of the transformation you offer to others. I once met a woman in her 40s who had no formal marketing training, no degree in business, and yet she was fully booked months in advance as a spiritual coach. Her secret? She didn't pretend to be perfect. She openly shared her story of healing from trauma, walking away from a toxic career, and rediscovering her worth through spiritual growth. Her Instagram wasn't curated. It was raw, real, and resonant. People saw themselves in her journey. They didn't hire her because she sounded like an expert. They hired her because she embodied her truth. She was proof that healing is possible. Her business wasn't built on a funnel. It was built on authenticity. So I ask you this: what parts of your truth are you still hiding out of fear they won't be accepted? And what would happen if you brought all of who you are into your work, your message, your mission? Remember, the greatest marketing strategy is to be fully yourself in a world that keeps telling you to be something else. Clients aren't just paying for solutions. They're paying for safety, for clarity, for spiritual resonance. They're drawn to your lived experience, your spiritual wisdom, and the way your presence makes them feel seen and safe. So stop waiting to feel ready. You don't need to earn your right to serve. Your life is already your certification, and your truth is your magnet. The lesson here is simple but powerful. When you prioritize authenticity over approval, alignment over strategy, and spiritual growth over performance, you naturally begin to attract those who are meant to walk this path with you. Let that be the foundation of the business you build. What step will you take today to embody more of your truth and share it with the world? Drop it in the comments and let's grow together. What part of this message resonates with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this has shaped your journey. As we close this journey, remember the core message. Your income doesn't come from credentials. It flows from alignment with your spiritual gifts and the courage to embody your truth. You don't need to chase approval or fit into anyone's mold. You just need to stop apologizing for your existence and start owning the power that's already within you. If something in this video resonated deeply, leave a comment with your personal affirmation, whether it's, "I am ready to be paid for being fully myself," or something your future self will thank you for claiming today. How are you ready to show up for your purpose? Let us know. And if you're called to keep growing with us, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more soul-deep insights. This isn't just about making money. It's about remembering who you are, living it boldly, and allowing abundance to meet you there. The world is waiting for the real you, the forbidden technique that makes your soul remember who you really are. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. What if the answers you've been seeking outside through books, relationships, even success were actually hidden inside you all along? In this video, Spiritual Wisdom invites you to rediscover a powerful yet forgotten technique that unlocks your true nature and reconnects you with your soul's original blueprint. This isn't just theory, it's a sacred inner practice that Jung hinted at, one that has the power to transform confusion into clarity and survival into purpose. Are you ready to remember who you truly are beneath all the noise? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's awaken together. 1. The technique was hidden because it works too well. This ancient technique was never silenced because it was ineffective. It was silenced because it was dangerous to the systems that thrive on forgetfulness. It doesn't teach you anything new. Instead, it strips away the artificial layers you've accumulated of roles, identities, expectations, and in their place, it restores the raw memory of your soul. This isn't about becoming something. It's about remembering what you already are. Beneath the distractions, beneath the lies you were told, and the ones you told yourself, there is a presence silent, powerful, undeniable. And when that presence reawakens, everything false begins to fall away. When a man begins to remember his soul, he becomes immune to manipulation. He no longer seeks validation from systems built to keep him docile. He stops asking for permission to be himself. And that's precisely why this technique was hidden. Power structures, whether in politics, religion, or culture, cannot control a man who sees clearly, because a soul that remembers no longer fits inside their definitions. He does not obey. He aligns. He does not react. He responds. He is not owned. He belongs to himself. Carl Jung understood this well. He called it individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole again. This isn't a loud transformation. It's not flashy. It happens quietly in the background of your life. You notice yourself pausing before speaking, feeling more than reacting, choosing truth even when it costs comfort. This technique reawakens your inner witness, that calm, grounded part of you that's been watching all along, waiting for you to come home. You begin to remember who you were before the trauma, before the programming, before the world convinced you to trade authenticity for acceptance. This remembering is not poetic, it's practical. Your habits shift, your relationships change. You no longer tolerate what drains you. You stop chasing what was never meant for you. The world, once loud and heavy, begins to soften, not because it changed, but because you did. The soul doesn't scream, it whispers. And once you learn how to hear it again, you realize it never stopped speaking. You just stopped listening. This technique isn't something you buy. It's something you surrender to. It asks for your attention, your stillness, your honesty. It asks you to stop running, to stop numbing yourself with noise, distractions, and busyness, and finally sit with your truth. And when you do, you'll feel it. That familiar pulse underneath all the chaos, that quiet recognition. That's your soul. And once it awakens, nothing external can own you again. Not opinions, not systems, not even your past. And that's the real power. Not to become someone new, but to remember the ancient, untouchable essence you've always carried. That's why this technique was feared. Because it works. Because once you remember, you cannot be controlled. And because a man who remembers his soul is a man who finally knows how to live. Are you ready to remember who you truly are? If this ancient truth speaks to your soul, comment below, "I'm ready to awaken," and let the world know you're reclaiming your spiritual power. 2. You are not lost, you are covered. You are not lost, you are covered. And that changes everything. Your soul has never forgotten who you are. It remembers with perfect clarity. What Carl Jung called individuation is not some mystical becoming. It's a stripping away. It's the unraveling of all the noise, all the beliefs, all the personas you picked up to survive but never needed to keep. Awakening is not about adding anything to yourself. It's about remembering what was always there beneath the surface. You were never broken, only buried. The soul doesn't need fixing. It needs revealing. Beneath every mask you wear, beneath every role you perform, beneath every story you've been told about who you should be, there is a quiet, unshakable knowing. But you've been covered by years of conditioning. Praise that taught you to perform, pain that taught you to shrink, and silence that taught you to hide. All of it accumulated like dust on a mirror, distorting your reflection, but never changing the truth underneath. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And this is not just poetic, it is practical. Because when you stop chasing external validation and finally turn inward, what you find is not emptiness, but remembrance. You begin to notice the quiet ache wasn't a sign of something missing, but something waiting. That restless pull inside of you is the soul trying to come through. And this isn't about learning a new system. or following a 10-step plan. It's about slowing down enough to feel what you've forgotten. It's about silence over stimulation, presence over performance, wholeness over image. Healing doesn't look like effort. It looks like surrender. It's that moment when you stop trying to be anything other than real. And in that moment, the layers start falling off like dead weight. There's a man I once knew who had all the things: money, power, recognition. And yet every night, he went to bed with a weight in his chest he couldn't explain. He changed cities, careers, even relationships. But the ache followed. Until one quiet evening, he opened a dusty book by Carl Jung and read about the shadow, the rejected parts of ourselves we unconsciously bury. And something inside him cracked. He stopped looking for new answers and started facing old wounds. He journaled. He sat in silence. He faced his guilt, his shame, his lost dreams. And for the first time in decades, the ache softened. Not because he found something new, but because he remembered what he'd abandoned. The technique wasn't a method. It was a permission to be whole. You don't need to chase. You need to clear. You don't need to become. You need to return. The soul doesn't rise in chaos. It speaks in stillness. And the more you strip away what you are not, the clearer it becomes who you are. Your power was never lost. It was just misplaced beneath the weight of what you thought you had to be. And when you begin to remove that weight, something miraculous happens. You stop searching for truth and start living it. You stop performing life and start inhabiting it. Carl Jung never promised that this journey would be easy, but he knew it would be real. And real life is always worth it. The real you is not waiting at the end of a spiritual quest. The real you is quietly watching, patiently waiting, and ready to be remembered. Did this message awaken something within you? If so, comment, "I remember who I am," below to affirm your journey. And let's keep uncovering the truth of your soul together. 3. This practice exists across ancient civilizations. Across every ancient civilization, from the sacred rites of Egypt to the ecstatic Orphic states of Greece and the meditative stillness of India's Smarana, there existed a spiritual technique so profound that it bypassed intellectual learning entirely. These were not rituals meant to indoctrinate or convert. They were doorways silent, powerful experiences designed to awaken what had been buried deep inside, the memory of your soul. Not a metaphorical memory, but a spiritual knowing etched into your very being, beyond time, beyond language, beyond conditioning. The Egyptians sought divine union. The Greeks danced with the divine through trance, and the Indian sages turned inward through remembrance. Though the methods differed, the goal was the same: to help you remember what the world has taught you to forget, that you are not just a person trying to survive, you are a soul trying to remember. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." That single sentence carries the essence of this forgotten technique. It is not about becoming more. It is about becoming still. Because beneath the noise of the modern world, beneath the scrolls, the schedules, the endless striving, there is something eternal within you that doesn't need fixing. It needs remembering. The truth is, the world has trained you to forget. It taught you to identify with roles, with labels, with expectations. You became a name, a job, a mask you had to wear to be accepted. But your soul never agreed to that. Your soul has always known its own rhythm, its own depth, its own language. And this sacred practice, long hidden and often suppressed, was never about changing who you are. It was about stripping away who you're not. In a society obsessed with doing, achieving, and proving, this practice invites you to unlearn, to stop chasing, to stop performing, and to simply be. That's where the real remembering begins. Not through effort, but through presence. Not through seeking more answers, but through listening to the silence within. This is why so many seekers feel spiritually starved. They're looking outside when the forgotten temple has always been within. The technique doesn't require belief. It requires honesty. The willingness to sit with yourself long enough for the masks to fall away. The courage to question what you've been told about who you are. The devotion to feel what the mind has numbed for years. It's not easy, but it is real. And what's real will always call you back, even if it must whisper. The soul remembers. It remembers who you were before the world named you. It remembers the stillness before the storm. And when you surrender to that remembering, you stop becoming a product of your environment and start becoming a presence in the world. That is the real spiritual work, not to impress, not to perform, but to return. To return to what's always been here, quietly waiting beneath the noise. The ancient ones knew this. They knew that awakening wasn't a destination, but a return to origin. That's why they protected this practice, not to keep it from you, but to ensure it reached those who were ready to receive it. The question is not whether this technique works. It always has. The real question is, will you dare to remember? If this awakens something deep within you, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this ancient wisdom alive together. 4. The technique has 3 core phases. Deprogramming is the sacred first step in the forgotten technique that leads you back to your soul. It's not about adding more information to your mind. It's about removing what never belonged there. From the moment you were born, you've been absorbing beliefs, fears, and definitions of manhood that were not yours. Society told you to be strong, but never still. To lead, but never feel. To win, but never rest. And somewhere along the way, you began to mistake those commands for your truth. But true power begins when you have the courage to ask, who planted these thoughts? And then start releasing them. Deprogramming is an act of rebellion against the noise. It's peeling off layers of conditioning, facing the discomfort of emptiness, and allowing that emptiness to become a sacred space, not a void, but a vessel. Once you've cleared the interference, you enter the realm of inner activation, a phase where silence becomes your ally and the breath becomes your guide. Here, breathwork isn't just a tool for relaxation. It's a key to unlocking inner perception. When you breathe with awareness, you activate dormant pathways that connect you to something far beyond the surface of the mind. Stillness is no longer passive. It becomes a form of deep listening. Symbolic imagery arises not from fantasy, but from the soul's own language. You may begin to see patterns, visions, or feel messages that cannot be explained but are deeply known. This phase isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, sacred, and intensely personal. It strips away distraction and trains your nervous system to stop reacting to chaos and start responding to truth. The goal is not to become someone new. It's to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And then comes resonance, the phase where everything shifts from seeking to embodying. This is where your soul begins to hum in alignment with your choices, your presence, your energy. You don't think your way into it. You feel your way into it. You begin to sense your true name, not the one given to you at birth, but the energetic signature your soul has always carried. It isn't spoken in words. It's spoken through vibration, through movement, through presence. In this phase, your life becomes an instrument tuned to your inner frequency. People may not understand what has changed in you, but they'll feel it. They'll feel the still power in your presence, the depth behind your eyes, the integrity in your silence. You no longer need to prove, convince, or chase. You begin to embody something rare, a man whose soul is remembered, activated, and resonant. And from that place, everything, your decisions, your boundaries, your love, emerges not from ego or fear, but from truth. This is not a performance. It's a return to essence, a return to the soul. As we explore the 3 sacred phases of this forgotten technique, deprogramming, inner activation, and resonance, let this be more than knowledge. Let it be transformation. If you feel the shift beginning within you, comment below. I'm entering phase 2. It's a sign that your soul is remembering. Let's continue this journey of awakening together. 5. It's not about learning. It's about frequency. Most people think the path to awakening is about learning more, studying harder, reading spiritual books, attending endless workshops, but that belief is a distraction in itself. As Carl Jung deeply understood, the truth is that your soul doesn't respond to information. It responds to frequency. This forgotten technique is not about collecting knowledge. It's about tuning your inner vibration, like adjusting an old radio until the static disappears and the original signal comes through crystal clear. Your soul has always been singing beneath the noise. You've just been out of tune. This technique works by removing what is not you conditioning, expectations, fears, false identities, and what's left is a pure resonance, a deep inner recognition that whispers, "This is who I've always been." It's not learning, it's remembering, and this remembering doesn't happen through effort. It happens through alignment. Carl Jung called it individuation, not as a process of becoming something new, but of unveiling what has always been hidden beneath the layers of survival and social performance. There's a man in his 40s who used to chase everything the world told him would bring fulfillment status, money, recognition, but ended up feeling more lost than ever. Burned out, he left it all and moved to a quiet village in the mountains. He didn't go there to learn. He went there to feel. And one afternoon, sitting beside a river with no thoughts in his head and no goal in his heart, he felt something shift. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't mystical. It was honest. In that stillness, something ancient moved within him, not a voice, but a vibration. It didn't tell him anything new. It reminded him of what he had forgotten. That peace, that presence that was him, without distortion. That was soul memory. That was the real technique. Nothing forced, nothing taught, just pure being. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." That's not just poetic, it's precise. The dream is the illusion we live in when we're chasing truths outside ourselves. The awakening is what happens when we feel the truth that has always lived inside. You don't need to do more. You need to release what's blocking your signal. That ache for simplicity, the longing for silence, the craving to feel whole without external validation, those are not random. They're your soul trying to come through. The real spiritual practice is subtraction, not addition. Let go of what numbs you, dulls you, or makes you feel like you need to be someone else. Stop chasing frequency. Return to it. Every time you choose stillness over noise, authenticity over approval, presence over performance, you're remembering. And when that frequency becomes steady, you stop trying to prove yourself. You stop needing the world to tell you who you are. You just know. The soul doesn't speak English or ideas. It speaks of vibration. And Carl Jung gave us a path back to that forgotten truth, not by offering answers, but by reminding us where to look. Not outward, inward, not forward. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on tuning into your true frequency and unlocking the soul's original memory. Because it was never about learning. It was about remembering who you've always been. 6. Daily life is the ritual. You don't need temples, gurus, or sacred chants to awaken spiritually. Your daily life is the sacred ground where the soul remembers itself. Every step, every breath, every word is part of the ritual. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And in that simple truth lies the secret. You awaken not by running from the world, but by living in it with presence. True remembrance doesn't require perfect understanding. It requires honest embodiment. It's how you carry yourself in moments when no one is watching. It's the active silence you bring to a noisy world. The sacred attention you offer to the smallest details. How you tie your shoes, sip your coffee, speak to your children, or hold space for someone else's pain without trying to fix it. Each of these ordinary acts becomes a spiritual practice when done consciously. And this is the forgotten technique. Living in such a way that your very being becomes the altar. When you wash the dishes with care instead of rushing. When you walk without your phone and feel the ground beneath your feet. When you choose not to speak from anger, but from presence, you are already remembering who you are. You are not waiting for spiritual lightning to strike. You are lighting the candle of awareness every time you pause before reacting. When clarity fades, you don't abandon your path. You keep walking. You keep breathing into the unknown. You keep treating yourself and others with respect, even when the answers haven't arrived. That is what makes the sacred return. The soul doesn't respond to force. It responds to consistency. It returns when it feels safe inside the quiet rhythms of your daily life. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that becoming happens not in a single moment of revelation, but in the choices you repeat when no one is looking. You don't need to go anywhere else. The miracle is already here. Your spiritual path is how you live when you're tired, how you speak when you're hurt, how you breathe when you're afraid. It is your willingness to show up fully, to bring all of yourself to this moment, not just the polished, perfect parts. The forgotten technique is not hidden in ancient scrolls. It's found in your willingness to live today like it matters. Let your silence be your prayer. Let your attention be your meditation. Let your presence be your temple. This is how you awaken your true nature. This is how you make the ordinary sacred again. If this message speaks to your soul, say it with me now. My daily life is the ritual. I honor the sacred in every moment. I live in remembrance. And if you feel aligned, like, subscribe, and let this be your quiet devotion today. 7. Remembering changes everything. When you finally remember who you truly are, something irreversible happens deep in your soul. You stop chasing love because you realize you are love. You stop begging for validation because you begin to rest in the truth that has always been inside you. And this is exactly why this ancient technique was hidden. It makes you spiritually untouchable. It dismantles the entire structure that depends on your forgetting. Forgetting turns you into a consumer. Remembering turns you into a creator. And when you begin to live from the truth of your being, no one can manipulate you, because you're no longer trying to fit into someone else's version of life. You are no longer programmable, persuadable, or dependent on outer systems to give your life meaning. This forbidden technique wasn't outlawed because it was dangerous. It was forbidden because it was liberating. It gives you the one thing this world cannot sell you: your soul's authority. Most men spend decades building identities that eventually exhaust them. They become husbands, fathers, businessmen, achievers, but somewhere along the way, the quiet voice within is buried under roles and expectations. And then one day, they feel a hunger no success can feed. That hunger is not weakness. It's your soul calling you home. And the way back is not about adding more, but subtracting what never belonged to you in the first place. This ancient method doesn't teach you how to become powerful. It reveals that you've always been. It's about stripping away the false identities, the wounds you inherited, and the illusions that tell you you're not enough. Once that veil lifts, life doesn't change immediately, but your relationship to life does. You begin to move differently. You walk into rooms differently. You listen to people differently. You're not performing anymore. You're present. This kind of inner transformation cannot be achieved through books alone or by mimicking surface-level rituals. It's a soul practice, an inner alchemy that requires honesty, presence, and the courage to face yourself without the masks. And when you do, you gain something sacred: clarity. You stop living by unconscious habits, and you begin to shape your life with intention. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because it aligns with your soul's rhythm. The world may still misunderstand you. You may lose relationships that were based on who you pretended to be. But what you gain is far greater self-respect, freedom, and spiritual sovereignty. You are no longer a man seeking purpose. You are purpose, embodied. And once you've remembered this, you don't just survive life. You begin to move through it as someone who has nothing to prove and everything to express. To affirm your return to truth, speak it into being. Comment below, "I remember who I am," to anchor your awakening and remind others that the soul's power begins the moment we stop forgetting. And so, as we close this journey into the forgotten technique that awakens your true nature, remember, this isn't just ancient knowledge. It's a mirror reflecting who you've always been beneath the noise. Carl Jung taught us that the path to the self is not about becoming something new, but remembering what was never truly lost. If today's message sparks something within you, imagine what lies ahead. Don't let this be where your awakening ends. Let it be where it begins. If you found value in this video, please like, share it with others who are ready to remember, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next step on this sacred path. Your soul has been waiting now. It's time to answer.